What's up, guys? Danny from CV Cycles with another video for you. Topic of this video is something that we get asked all the time. And it's kind of shocking that we get asked this all the time, but here's the question. Is a 250cc road bike big enough for a full-size male? Now, I have two trains of thought on this. The first one is no. Hell no. The reason I say that, and what I tell people when they get ready to buy a bike, is they always say, well, I'll buy this small bike for a while until I can afford a bigger bike or until I feel like I'm ready to handle a bigger bike. Well, guess what? That's going to be in like 3 weeks. Honestly, within 2 months, you will be wanting a bigger bike, more power, everything like that. A 250 is not going to be sufficient for you for more than a few weeks. I promise. So whenever somebody talks to me about this, if they already know how to ride a bike and they're trying to get into the motorcycle world and they ask that question, always my answer is hell no. Do not buy a 250. Your bike, if you're planning on having a bike long term and you plan on riding it any more than just around town, if you want to go through a canyon, you want to go for us down to the next to Salt Lake is the big city down south of us. That's 100 miles south. So you're talking highway speeds and freeway speeds. If you want to be able to ride there, hell no, don't buy a 250. No, not even close. Even at 65 miles an hour for an hour, that is not comfortable. It sucks. The bike is wrapped up pretty good. It's vibrating like a... It sucks, okay? Don't do it. That's what I tell people. My opinion and what I give to people is don't buy anything smaller than a 750. That's my opinion. If you're looking at the cruiser world, okay, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking sport bikes, adventure bikes, the FZ07, any bikes like that. They're fantastic, but we're talking cruisers, okay? The people that are asking me are looking at a Honda Rebel or a Yamaha Virago 250 or, something like that. And my answer always to them will be, don't do it. You're going to regret it. And some of them listen, some of them don't. And guess what? The ones that don't, they regret it. Because they think that, oh, this will be a great starter bike. It'll last me for a year or two, and then I'll be ready for a bigger bike. But reality is, it doesn't take that long for you to get used to handling a motorcycle on the street and be ready and really wanting more power. On top of that, it's not going to take long for you to want to branch out and take rides that are longer, that are outside of the city, that are through the canyon, out in the country. You're going to want to go on rides with other people. And majority of the other people you're going to want to go on a ride with, most likely not riding 250s, okay? Now, I understand that Suzuki and everybody has like 400s and 600s and 650s and all of that, single cylinder bikes. You're going to outgrow those. Now, my personal opinion is if you're going to look for a bike that you're going to keep for long term and you're going to want to ride this on a little bit longer rides. Now we're talking day rides, weekend rides, a few hundred miles. I mean, obviously we're not going to buy a 750 in northern Utah and want to ride that bastard clear back to Sturgis, right? That's not what I'm going to tell people to buy if that's their plan. If their plan is to ride around the canyon, up to Bear Lake and back down, which is, 100 miles, let's say, a couple hours, 750's fine. We do a loop up there We go up through Idaho and through a canyon around Bear Lake and come back down through Logan Canyon. It takes a few hours. We have some people that go with us on 750s, and that bike handles it just fine. If you want to go for a weekend, total your 300, 400, 500 miles over the course of a few days, a 750 will be great. But I tell people, if you're looking long term and you have plans of possibly going on a little bit longer trips, I wouldn't buy anything less than an 1100. Sometimes a 900, depending on gearing and how the bike is set up, would be just fine. But for me, I wouldn't go smaller than an 1100. That's just me. Certainly would not ever suggest, if you have plans of going any distance whatsoever, to buy smaller than a 750. A 250, don't do it. Now, on the other hand of that, if you never plan on riding it anywhere outside of the city, and you quite literally are buying this bike looking for gas mileage, being out in the open, okay, having that therapy time, but let's say you live in town or within a few miles of town, and that's the only time you're going to ride it. So you want something cheap, you want something with good gas mileage. A 250 has enough power to get you around town, absolutely. If that's the only thing you ever plan on doing on this bike, sure, go ahead and do it. But I'll guarantee you one thing, even though that's your plans, or you think that's your plans right now, in 2 months, your plans are going to change. Because you're going to get time in the seat, you're going to get that therapy time, even though it's not super long, and you're going to crave more of it, okay? You're going to want to go on longer rides, and your bike's not capable. Quite frankly, it's not capable. Now, that's not to say that if you're crazy enough, you can't do it. I have a buddy that years and years and years ago, he made the mistake of buying a scooter with these same intentions, riding it to work, riding it around town. It was really during that scooter craze where everybody decided they were gay and wanted to buy a scooter. Now, I'm not saying anything about their sexuality. I'm saying gay as in stupid, right? Don't buy a scooter. They're gay. Anyways, this guy buys a scooter. It was a giant mistake, and he realized it was a mistake pretty quick. So he trades that in to buy a motorcycle. He buys a Yamaha Virago 250. So he went from a 125cc scooter to a 250cc bike. Still pretty gay, right? Depending on your thought process, but better than a scooter, okay? The problem was, just like I tell everybody, his thoughts on what he wanted to ride changed. And it changed very quickly. The problem with it is with trading in his scooter, he only had the scooter for a couple of months. He traded that into the dealership on the Virago. Now he's a little bit upside down in the Virago. Can't sell it for what he owes. Can't afford to trade it in on another bike. So he's stuck with it. Okay, so for that summer, he and I both were working together, and we had a buddy that had a shop over the mountain in another county, and we were going over and helping him pretty much every single day. Now, at the time, I was riding an 800cc Suzuki Intruder. So I was riding over there every day. That Intruder, it was a great bike. I've had that. I love that bike. I love the 1400s. I've had, they're great bikes. Tiny little gas tank, which really is annoying. But all in all, it's a great bike. It handles well, great power, shaft drive, so it's very low maintenance. Anyways, it's a great bike. But that's what I'm riding. He's riding this 250. Now, we go on a highway, 55 miles an hour is the speed limit the majority of the way. This 250 will do 55. Now, let me tell you, my buddy that's riding this bike, he's a skinny little dude, right? Maybe 135, 140 pounds. So the bike will go a little better with him. If my fat ass was on the bike, No way. But he had that benefit that he's a skinny little guy. So we're riding over the mountain, which it handles just fine. The problem is we then have to get on the freeway and go probably 7 or 8 miles on the freeway where the speed limit's 75. That bike couldn't handle it. Even with a skinny little dude on it, he couldn't keep up. And he said at 70, that bike sounded and felt like it was going to blow up. But he's stuck with that bike, and he rode it every day over there, almost blowing that stupid bike up. And he still owns that bike to this day, but he's kind of gotten away from riding. That bike kind of just sits there now. But anyways, the moral of that is the bike's big enough for around town, and it's less gay than buying a scooter. But it's a mistake, because you will very quickly outgrow that bike. I promise you. So if a brand new 250 is in your price range, my advice, don't do it. Buy a couple year old 750 or something in that range that's used for the same price. You're going to enjoy that a hell of a lot more than a 250. I promise. Your needs and what you want out of a bike are going to change very, very quickly. If you don't believe me, talk to somebody with a 250. I see these guys all over the place on these Honda Groms and the Kawasaki Z125s, those little tiny crotch rockets. Those have a different purpose, right? You can't ride those out on the highway. You can't, it's just not going to work. So those guys that buy those, they're literally like college kids that they're going to drive around town a little bit. They're going to drive that thing up on campus and lock it up because you can just carry that bike off. They're a little different. I'll make a different video on those, but we're talking cruiser bikes. Don't buy a 250. Certainly don't buy a 125 in a cruiser bike. Honestly, my advice, just like I said, never go smaller than a 700. 750. If you're going to go long distance, even somewhat long distance, don't buy anything smaller than an 1100. You can buy a couple year older 1100 for the same price as a 750 that's 2 years newer, and they'll probably have relatively close miles on them. Go for the couple year older bike. I promise you're going to like it a lot more. So that's my advice. You guys take it for what it's worth. If you don't agree with me, put a comment in. If you do agree with me, put a comment in. We'll have a discussion. Maybe I'll make another video based on someone else's opinion on this matter. Anyways, click the like button. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe so we can keep making these videos. Look us up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We've got a website at cvcycles.com. We're going to be selling bikes very soon. We're in the process of paperwork, as I've said in the past, trying to get set up to get our dealer's license, and we're going to try to sell bikes all over the country at a very, very discounted price because our goal is to get more people in the seats and enjoying the throttle time, because as we all know, you cannot beat that therapy time that twisting a throttle gives. So that's our goal. Get more people in seats at an affordable price so that people can afford to get into it, because we all know bikes aren't cheap. So anyways, that's our goal. Give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe so we can continue on that path. And until next time, keep it on two wheels, guys. See ya.